need the Milwaukee family players singing for the threepenny opera. Okay? So could you please explain that to our court composer? He's used to his patrons building him a castle. That's not how it works down here. That is so not how it works down here. You tell Herr Wagner that if he doesn't get the Milwaukee family players singing like little birds or sirens, he is going to be playing lounge music for the harpies. Good? Got it? Good. Tell him that. Hello? How are you? Ah, finally, we have a play that isn't about waiting. Oh, it's so good to have one of my favourites back again. So, but before we start on Sophocles' Oedipus the King, or Oedipus Rex, remember there's the shop, supporters, yada, 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 yada. You know, all the things they want me to say, but I'm not saying. You know all the things. And anyway, make sure that you like and subscribe and comment and share, or I will jump out from under your bed and scare you witless. Okay? Are we good? We're good. Right, so this time we have a real play. I know that sounds really rude of me to say that we haven't had a real play, but apart from Mr. Beckett, I did enjoy The Summer of the 17th Doll, but especially Mr. Beckett. And we haven't had a play from my world. My world. So this is something I wanted to bring you, is one of my favourite plays, one of the Ancients plays. And I thought we would start with probably the best known of all the ancient plays. And so that is Oedipus Rex. You all know Oedipus Rex, I think. Oedipus Rex, who married his mother and killed his father. Yeah? Yeah, but actually there's a lot of things going on in this play. Now, one of the first things that we had a problem with the Milwaukee family players, is it's a masked play. And they'd not really worked with masks before, which was kind of interesting. They kept taking them off, saying they couldn't breathe, and this is too hard, and I can't see, and I'm going to fall over the set, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, I don't care. So they had to wear their masks. So that is the first thing. The second thing, they really didn't quite understand how these characters work. They kept trying to invest them with like some sort of actual character to make them real human beings. So it's like, these are not human beings. This is the king. This is the king's brother-in-law. This is the slave. This is the chorus. This is the queen. This is the messenger. It's about types, not people. There is no real Oedipus. Could you imagine how horrific that would be? I mean, Prometheus's little clay people work on completely different rules to us. Like, I mean, we, the gods, we don't have DNA. There's nothing to get messed up if we have brother, cousins, and uncle fathers, things like that. That doesn't really upset our order. It upsets yours badly. Anyway, so the Milwaukee family players had a bit of a problem with that. They also didn't really understand the concept of a chorus. They thought a chorus was top hat and tails, like out of a Busby Berkeley film. Do you know how many of those are down here? So many of them. We have so many lost films. You have no idea. You think they're lost. Oh, they're down here. They're down here. Ugh. Anyway, they had a problem with the concept of a chorus, because in their minds a chorus is singing and dancing, and we did manage to get them corralled onto the stairs. But we really couldn't part them with their top hats and tails. So it was a very odd production we had. But anyway, so for those people who don't know, Oedipus Rex, it occurs in Thebes. Oedipus is king of Thebes, and there is a plague. The chorus comes. The chorus is, of course, the ordinary people, the citizens, the hoi polloi. Now, this was originally written for the Spring Festival for my good cousin brother Dionysus, one of the Cathotic gods, and he is a god of illusion and a bit chaotic, and so theatre really is kind of up his alley when you really think about it. It's all about not being in your right mind and expressing passions that are not safe for general consumption. So, you know, the same way drunkenness does. It's cathartic. So, anyway, there is a plague in Thebes, and the chorus comes to the palace. The whole play takes place on the threshold of the palace, which is very important. The chorus comes to the palace, and they call to Oedipus to do something about this plague, to do something to alleviate it's killing the crops, it's killing the animals, it's killing the people. Everything in Thebes is dying. Everything is being corrupted by this plague. Apollo is having a wonderful time. My cousin, brother, Polly, he's just having a great time. This whole play is all, he loves this play too. The whole thing is all very focused on, it's very poly-focused. Very poly-focused. Anyway, they are all lamenting because the plague's killing everyone. Oedipus comes out and he says that he has sent his brother-in-law Creon to Delphi to find out from Apollo, from the priestess, what the cause of this plague is. He has also called twice for the prophet Tiresias to come and help and tell them what is going on. But Tiresias is taking a very long time to come, and Creon is still not back from Apollo. Finally, the blind prophet arrives, and he is very reluctant to tell Oedipus what is actually happening and who is responsible. And finally, Oedipus pries out of him that he is responsible for the plague. And Oedipus is not happy about this, and he thinks that Creon must have put the prophet up to this. He's like, this is very, very wrong. He must be coveting my throne. Creon arrives, and Creon tells Oedipus that the plague is caused by the fact that Laius, the former king's murderer, is still at large. And Oedipus questions Creon, why did you not look into the murder? Apparently Laius was killed and waylaid and killed by robbers on the road from Delphi. many years ago. Not actually very long before Oedipus himself turned up and killed the Sphinx. Well, he didn't actually kill the Sphinx. Sphinxes can't kill themselves. I just missed a dinner. She went off into the desert. What do you think? What, a great big... No. But Creon's defense for having not fully investigated the murder of the king, something you'd think would be a bit of a priority, is, well, we had a bit of a Sphinx problem. We were kind of preoccupied by the Sphinx problem. I can appreciate you had a problem with the big pussycat winged beastie. The flying pussycat lady. Yeah, they're look, if you get sphinxes, it takes ages, just the milk alone to lure them out, and they eat a lot. I mean, and scritchies, yeah. They're big pets. I mean, if you're not really prepared to be a responsible sphinx owner, then, just don't take one on. They're really high maintenance pets. So they had a bit of a Sphinx problem. Anyway, Oedipus had come to Thebes and he had solved the Sphinx's riddles, and she's like, well, finally, now I'm going to go off and play. And she pissed off. So they didn't have a Sphinx problem. And the people of Thebes were so thrilled about this that they made Oedipus their king. And he married the newly widowed, hot Queen Jocasta. Now, she must have had some inkling as to what was going on here. I mean, let's just say, it doesn't take long for her to twig when things start getting teased out. She's like, oh shit, that thing I was worried about all these years with having 4 children and the fact that he's probably about the right age to be my son, because she's not that old. Let's say she was about 12, 13 when she married Laius and he was older than her. And then so, and Oedipus, let's say he's 15. So she's in her late 20s. So she's still his hot young wife of the dead king. I mean, and then here's this other person come along and said, hey, and so, but she's not, yes, anyway. So anyway, Oedipus attacks Creon and says, you're wanting my throne. And Creon is like, I don't want your throne, dude. Look, I have this sweet job in the palace. I am totally, this is a totally sweet gig for me. I have privilege, I have influence, and I don't have the responsibility of being king and having all the people turn up and say, hey, there's plague, do something. But, look, if you want to banish me or kill me, fine, but you won't solve anything. Creon's pretty cool. He's pretty chill. He knows which side his bread is buttered on. And anyway, hearing the men outside bickering like this, her brother and her husband, brings Jocasta out of the palace. Now, this must be pretty bad because this is a play by an Athenian, and there is not much more misogynistic than an Athenian male. This is part of the reason why this entire play takes place on the threshold, because the correct place, according to an Athenian male, is for a woman is inside the home. So therefore she is getting involved in this very public airing of laundry because it is taking place on her doorstep. And she comes out and she manages to stop the men from fighting, which has, if you have ever listened to the Stravinsky, and I mean, I only have my opera company, but the Stravinsky, the entrance of Jocasta, is one of the most beautiful pieces of music Stravinsky ever wrote. Look for it. It's gorgeous. The entrance and then Jocosta's are, oh. Anyway, Jocasta manages to calm, Creon leaves, and she manages to calm down Oedipus. Oedipus asks her about the death of Laius, and she goes and tells him again the story that Laius was traveling with 5 attendants and that he was waylaid by robbers. And he was waylaid where 3 roads meet. And Oedipus realizes that, oh, was he an old man with like 5 attendants? Oh, oopsie. I think I'm the one who killed Laius. It was like, it's the world's first road rage incident. Honestly, if you had a traffic light or like a beat cop to direct traffic, would not have happened. Would not have happened. But here we get another insight into Oedipus's personality. He is rash, he doesn't think, and he acts. He just acts, and his actions have a tendency to be abrupt and violent. He's not really a thoughtful king. He makes a lot of abrupt and violent declarations, which is kind of, yeah. Yes. Anyway, so Oedipus confesses he believes he killed Laius. There was one witness, and that witness is currently a shepherd and is being sent for. He was a former slave of Laius's household, a natural slave, so a born into slavery, not a captured slave, which is important. And he begged Jocasta for the right to go and become a shepherd, because he did not want to be in the palace, possibly after Oedipus turned up and he didn't want to be the person who's like, oh crud, I know what this guy killed the old king. I don't want to be here when that comes out. And so he's been off as a shepherd and they've sent for him. But Oedipus also will not return to Corinth. He will not return to Corinth because of a prophecy that said he would murder his father and sleep and marry his mother and sleep with his mother. And he was on his way home from Delphi, having heard this, because he had a drunken man at a feast had gone and insulted him and said he was not his father's son, which made him enraged. And did he go and speak to his parents properly? No. Did he? So he never got the opportunity to have, yes, you were adopted. If he had that little bit of information, you were adopted. Even after he went to Delphi, he could have gone home again because they weren't his parents. We don't know where you're from. Could have been helpful. There's a lot of miscommunication in this. Mostly caused by the fact that Oedipus is arrogant and willful and short-tempered and violent. He's not a good king, in other words. He is not a good king. Now, he's also not very merciful. Because he's said, whoever, if someone is harboring something that they know about the death of Laius, he'll be banished or murdered or something, or executed. So he's not a merciful king. He's probably a bit scary to everyone, which is why they've waited so long in desperation to come do something about the plague, please. Anyway, so he fears to go home. A messenger comes from Corinth and tells Oedipus that his father has died. And the messenger, so Jocasta says, you can go home. And he says, well, about the other side of the prophecy, the marrying my mother. And the messenger is like, well, you aren't actually you aren't actually your mother's son. I gave you to your father when I found you in the woods. I was given you by a shepherd or by another man in the woods when you were about 3 days old, and your feet were tied together and pierced through so that like a 3-day-old baby's going to get away. But anyway, and Jocasta hears this and goes, oh my God, this is bad. So she had been attempting to like do the good thing of go to the temples with the incense, but she hears this and it's like, oh, yeah, that little nagging thing in the back of her head that says, he has weird feet. He has weird scars on his feet. I wonder how he got those. They look exactly like what scars that would have been left on my... And that little naggy voice that's probably been at her for the past, 10, 15 years. Yeah, and she's like, oh. And she goes into the house. And Oedipus is like, oh, well, my wife is now ashamed because I might be the son of a slave. And I was like, oh, it's so much worse, Oedipus. Is so much worse. And she's twigged to it, and she goes into the house and hangs herself because she's like, oh God, no. The thing your father and I were trying to prevent didn't happen. That useless slave. So eventually the shepherd finally arrives, the old man who was given the baby to take out. And the messenger says, you remember me, the other slave, you remember me, we at the time we spent a couple of summers up on the mountain. I had a couple of flocks, you had a couple of flocks. Remember that? Yes. And you gave me a baby? Yes. And Oedipus, he doesn't want to tell Oedipus this. He doesn't want to tell anything. He doesn't want to say what he knows because he knows this is going to be bad. And so Oedipus threatens to have him tortured, which, the Athenians saw slaves will lie and they will not tell the truth unless you torture them, because slaves are... especially natural slaves, rather than captured slaves, are naturally slow-witted and should not be trusted to make decisions on their own. Which is definitely what this slave did. And had he followed instructions, as he was told, none of this would have happened, because the baby would have been dead. Because had Laius gone and not offended the gods in the first place, Apollo would never have cursed him like this. So, don't go offending your local god. Is a good thing to remember. But anyway, he finally tells Oedipus that he did give the baby, that he was given the baby by the queen. He was a member of the queen's household. He was given the baby, told to expose it. He didn't expose the baby. He gave it to someone else, who then gave it to the king of Corinth. And now Oedipus realizes the truth. The horrible, horrible, horrible truth. He killed his father. He's been stooping his mother. They have 4 kids together. He goes into the palace. He finds Jocasta. We don't see this because the Greeks are very, very... they're not Romans. We don't go into the palace. But the chorus tells us that Oedipus has seen that Jocasta in her horror and her grief has hanged herself, and that Oedipus has taken 2 brooches from Jocasta's dress and has blinded himself with them. And out he comes again, and Creon is like, do we have to have all our dirty laundry out here? Oh my God, this is embarrassing. Come back into the house. You do not need to. Oh, but Oedipus is like, no, I need you to banish me. I need the people to see what I have done. And the people are like, well, that's charming. That's what we needed to see, isn't it? Yeah. Lovely. And Creon is like, okay, look, I'll banish you. This is icky. He has done nothing. But Oedipus has one last request, which is to have to be able to say goodbye to his daughters. And he's very concerned about his daughters because his daughters are now publicly the offspring of incest. His sons he doesn't worry too much about because they're men. And men will find their own way. But daughters, remember, these are Athenian Greeks. An unmarried woman is a problem for them. And he is concerned that his daughters will not be able to have shelter, and that they will not be cared for, and that they will not be able to find marriages because, like, yeah, who wants to marry into that? Nobody. The gods aren't finished with them, but that's another play. Who wants to marry into that? Nobody wants to marry into that. The gods clearly hate this family. They're going to not stop. Polly really doesn't stop. Polly does not stop. You piss him off, he is going to go for you. Vengeful thing he is. Me? Oh no, I take very much my husband's line of everyone comes to us anyway. At least they used to, before the management changed anyway. But we don't participate in that. We don't participate in that. Just as we don't participate in a lot of their squabbles, we also don't participate in bothering to mess about with the pathetic little lives of you clay people. It's beneath us. For some reason, Polly doesn't think it's beneath him. He loves messing with you. So anyway, Oedipus, now fully understanding things, is out in exile, wandering. And that's Oedipus Rex. And you know what? It needs the satyr dance at the end, the little jig to make everything, like Shakespeare does it, the globe. The jig to bring everything back to... You can't leave it on that. You mad? It's got very... King Lear has very Oedipus Rex overtones to it. Is highly influential. But as highly influential as it is very important to look at it in terms of its context in ancient Greece. Is part of a religious festival, these plays, any play, is part of a religious festival for Dionysus. It is very important that people are able to watch this, to be able to understand, to be able to see, no pun intended, but to be able to see these diabolical things happening and then understand why we don't let these things happen. Why the gods punish these sorts of things. Why you should have respect for the gods. It creates social cohesion. That is what the chorus is a stand-in for, is for the populace, for the citizenry, for the concerned people, and what you must do if you have a corrupt leader. Because it is also significant that this whole play takes place on the threshold of the palace, because it is the corruption within the palace that it is causing the corruption in the city itself. Until the corruption of the palace, the incestuous relationship of the palace is resolved, cleansed, then the city itself will not be cleansed. It's also a big thing to just don't bother the gods. Don't go to Delphi. I know you all want to go to Delphi. You all want to go to Delphi. You all want to know, what does my future hold? What does my future hold? I'm going to go and see the drugged out priestess at Delphi. And she's going to babble something. And then they're going to tell us something. And then I'm going to be completely paranoid about that for the rest of my life. It's almost as bad as your obsession with waiting. You know, foreknowledge is not for humans. Foreknowledge is for the gods, not for you. Do you know what would happen if you are like fish? Fish could get caught in a net or caught on a hook or eaten by a larger fish or, you know, end up in deoxygenated water and just... They don't know how they're going to end. And they're happy because they have no idea that they know how it's going to end. If you know how it's going to end, whew, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be a neurotic fish. If a fish knew that it is going to end some way, that fish would just drive itself entirely crazy. You are fish. You don't need to know. You just need to live and swim. And yet you do know. And Polly loves to tell you. He loves to tell you. He just loves toying with you. He's like a fly fisherman. Just playing that line. The longer he plays that line out, the more entertaining he is. He knows he's going to hook you. He loves giving people that. Really, he's quite sadistic. You know. And if he doesn't love giving you that, he loves taking it away like he did with Cassandra. Honestly, that girl should have just put out. Give her the gift of prophecy and then, well, payment. And it's like, it's not worth it. God. Just put out, girl. So he went and corrupted it. But this is a problem for you. He would have been... Oedipus would have been so much happier had he not known. He probably wouldn't have even done it. It's in fact the knowing that causes you to actually end up on that fate. The fates know exactly what they're doing. None of these people had any, there's never a point where they can get out of it. Knowing foreknowledge is only there to make sure that you stay in the footsteps that the gods have laid out for you. Very, very unfortunate thing to go doing is messing with what the gods know. But also, there are other characters who have not done what they need to do. Those slaves were disobedient. Those slaves had thought with initiative. They showed mercy. Now, I know that the regime change values mercy, values compassion, values love from everybody. But that is not how the writers of this play saw it. No. Not their world. Mercy is shown by a king, Creon. Mercy is executed by people who can understand. Slaves are not given to independent thought, according to Athenians. They should not. There is at no point at which the condition of slavery is questioned in this play. Slaves are slaves, and that is the natural order of things. But these slaves disobeyed and broke the natural order of things, and therefore set in motion this hideous prophecy. Also, this play occurs on the threshold. And it occurs at the crossroads. Two places where things change. The meeting of the roads, where choices are made that set people onto a particular path. And also the threshold of the household. You're setting out. You're in the liminal space somewhere between the public world and the private world, and this is where the private world is contaminating the public world. But it's also all of this dirty washing is being played out in front of the people. It's being played out for the people to see. There is no place to hide. And when you're on the threshold of something, you're on the threshold of a great change. Oedipus changes from a king into an exiled blind beggar. He came to Thebes as involuntary exile. He was technically in exile in Corinth, though he didn't know it. He returned home to Thebes thinking he was in exile. And then he ends the play by returning to exile with wisdom, though I don't think that's the wisdom anyone actually wants. But anyway, that's Oedipus Rex. It's a very very interesting play, a very symbolic play, a play that has had huge influence over plays for thousands of years now. And it's probably the best known of the ancient ones that I will be bringing you. Next time, the Milwaukee Family Players German lessons will be paying off as they bring Bertolt Brecht's The Threepenny Opera. So until then, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.